I think I didn't do anything wrong, just told a joke. Sure, maybe it was a little wild, but I didn't expect my husband to hand me divorce papers the following week. Turns out he wasn't laughing, and neither was the lawyer he brought to our front door. Looking back now, sitting in this half-empty house with nothing but legal documents for company, I keep replaying that dinner. How was I supposed to know that one stupid comment would unravel my entire life? But maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, when everything still seemed salvageable. The restaurant was packed that Friday night, our usual spot for family gatherings. We'd pushed 3 tables together to accommodate everyone: me, my husband Eli, his mother Marilyn, my sister Cleo and her husband Dan, plus a few others including Samir from my office. I'd invited Sam because he was new to town and didn't know many people yet. Plus, he was charming and funny, the kind of guy who could liven up any gathering. The conversation had been flowing as freely as the wine, and I was feeling particularly witty that evening. Someone, I think it was Dan, made some joke about dating apps and how different things were when we were younger. That's when Cleo chimed in with her own story about her college years, and suddenly everyone was sharing their most outrageous dating experiences. "Oh, please," I laughed, leaning back in my chair with my wine glass raised. "You all are amateurs. I guarantee my body count beats everyone's at this table combined." The words hung in the air for a moment. I was grinning, expecting laughter, maybe some playful protests. Instead, I got a mixture of shocked faces and uncomfortable silence. Samir smirked and looked down at his plate, while Cleo let out a nervous giggle. But it was Eli's face that caught me off guard. My husband of 10 years was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not embarrassment, but something colder. Disappointment, maybe, or disgust. "Tansy," he said quietly, his voice barely audible over the restaurant's ambient noise. "What?" I shrugged, taking another sip of wine. "It's just a joke, babe. Don't be so uptight." Marilyn, Eli's mother, had gone completely rigid. Her lips were pressed into a thin line, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. 8-year-old Lily, our daughter, was looking around the table with confusion, sensing the tension, but not understanding why everyone had stopped laughing. "Mommy, what's a body count?" Lily asked innocently. The silence grew even more uncomfortable. Cleo jumped in with some deflection about video games, but the damage was done. The rest of dinner passed in stilted conversation, with Eli barely speaking and Marilyn making pointed comments about appropriate dinner conversation. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. When we got to the parking lot, Eli walked straight to his car without waiting for me and Lily. I had to call out to him. "Seriously, Eli? You're going to pout all night over a stupid joke?" He turned around, his keys already in his hand. "Get in the car, Tansy. We'll talk at home." But we didn't talk at home. Eli put Lily to bed without saying a word to me, then locked himself in his home office for the rest of the night. I figured he'd cool off by morning. He always did. Eli wasn't the type to hold grudges or make scenes. He was steady, reliable, maybe a little boring. That's what I'd always thought anyway. I should have paid more attention to Marilyn's parting words that night, muttered just loud enough for me to hear as she got into her car. Some things can't be unsaid. The next few weeks were tense, but I convinced myself it would blow over. Eli was being distant, sure, but he'd been stressed at work lately anyway. He was spending more time at the office, coming home later, and when he was home, he seemed to be constantly busy with something. Fixing things around the house, helping Lily with homework, anything that didn't involve talking to me. I tried to smooth things over in my own way. I made his favorite dinner, suggested we plan a weekend getaway, even offered to apologize to his mother for the restaurant incident. But every attempt at reconciliation felt forced, and Eli's responses were polite but cold. "You don't need to apologize to my mother," he said one evening, not looking up from his laptop. You need to figure out why you thought that was appropriate to say in the first place. Oh, come on, I said, plopping down on the couch next to him. It was just a joke. You know I didn't mean anything by it. You're being paranoid. That word, paranoid, seemed to hit him wrong. He closed the laptop and looked at me directly for the first time in days. Am I? He asked quietly. The question hung between us, and for a moment I felt a flicker of something that might have been guilt. But I pushed it down. I wasn't doing anything wrong, not really. Sure, I'd been texting with Samir more often since the dinner, but that was just because he was the only one who seemed to understand my sense of humor. He'd sent me a message the day after the restaurant incident. Your husband needs to learn to appreciate a woman with personality. It felt good to have someone on my side for once. Yes, you're being paranoid, I said firmly. And honestly, Eli, this whole moody thing you've got going on, it's not attractive. I married a confident man, not someone who sulks for weeks over a harmless comment. Eli stared at me for a long moment, then reopened his laptop. I'm going to finish this project, he said. We can talk later. But we didn't talk later. We barely talked at all anymore, except about Lily's schedule or household logistics. And if I'm being honest, I wasn't entirely unhappy about it. The silence gave me more freedom to text with Samir without feeling like I was being watched. Our conversations had started innocently enough, work gossip, funny memes, complaints about our respective partners, but they were getting more personal, more frequent. Late-night messages about our dreams and frustrations, lunch meetings that stretched longer than they should. Nothing physical had happened yet, but the emotional connection was undeniable. Your husband doesn't appreciate what he has, Samir texted me one evening while Eli was putting Lily to bed. If you were mine, I'd never take you for granted. I screenshot the message to show Cleo, who immediately called me. Girl, this man is into you, she said, her voice full of excitement. When's the last time Eli said something romantic like that? I couldn't remember. Eli wasn't the romantic type. He showed love through actions, not words. But lately, even those actions felt mechanical, obligatory. I'm not looking for anything serious, I told Cleo. It's just nice to feel appreciated, you know? Eli's been so cold lately. You deserve some excitement, Cleo agreed. Life's too short to be stuck with someone who doesn't make you feel alive. The next day, I suggested to Samir that we grab coffee after work. Just as friends, I told myself. Just to get out of the house and have an adult conversation with someone who actually wanted to talk to me. We ended up at a little cafe downtown, talking for hours about everything and nothing. Samir was attentive in a way Eli hadn't been in years, asking questions about my thoughts and dreams, making me laugh, making me feel seen. When he walked me to my car, he brushed a strand of hair from my face. I've been thinking about you, he said softly. I should have stepped back, should have reminded him that I was married, that this was getting complicated. Instead, I leaned into his touch. I've been thinking about you too, I admitted. That night I came home to find Eli in the kitchen, loading the dishwasher. He looked up when I walked in, and for a moment I thought he might ask where I'd been, but he just nodded and went back to his task. How was your evening? He asked casually. Fine, I said, hanging my purse on the hook by the door. Just grabbed coffee with a coworker. You know how it is. Yeah, Eli said. I know how it is. Something in his tone made me look at him more closely, but his expression was unreadable. He finished with the dishes, kissed me on the forehead, a perfunctory gesture that felt more like habit than affection, and headed upstairs. I stayed in the kitchen for a few minutes, checking my phone. Samir had already texted, "Thanks for tonight. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." I typed back quickly, "Me too." Then I deleted the emoji and just sent, "Me too." I was being careful. I wasn't doing anything wrong, not really. Just enjoying some harmless attention from a friend who appreciated me. If Eli had a problem with that, maybe he should try being a better husband. But as I headed upstairs, I noticed that Eli had left our shared iPad on the counter, open to the Messages app. A chill ran down my spine as I realized he might have seen my texts with Samir. But when I checked, the conversation thread was closed, and the device was logged into his account, not mine. I was being paranoid now, just like I'd accused him of being. Eli wasn't the suspicious type. He trusted me, maybe too much for his own good. I tucked the iPad away and went to bed, where my husband was already asleep, turned away from my side of the bed. Things escalated quickly after that coffee date. What had started as harmless flirting with Samir became something more urgent, more necessary. He was like a drug. Every text, every stolen moment made me crave more. We started meeting regularly, always with plausible excuses. Work lunches, networking events, group happy hours that somehow ended with just the two of us. Meanwhile, my marriage continued its slow-motion collapse. Eli had started taking Lily to his mother's house more often, claiming she missed her grandmother. But I knew what was really happening. He was avoiding me, creating distance, building walls I couldn't scale. "Daddy's sad a lot now," Lily told me one evening as I tucked her into bed. "Did you and Daddy have a fight?" "No, sweetheart," I lied smoothly. "Daddy's just busy with work. You know how he gets when he has big projects." But Lily wasn't buying it. She was 8, not stupid. She could feel the tension in our house, the way conversations stopped when she entered a room, the way her father's smiles never quite reached his eyes anymore. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. Samir and I had met at a hotel bar for what I told myself was just drinks between colleagues. But when he suggested we get a room, I didn't say no. I told myself it was just one time, just a moment of weakness, just something I needed to get out of my system. Afterwards, lying in the unfamiliar bed while Samir dozed beside me, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and guilt that I quickly pushed away. I wasn't the first person to have an affair, and I wouldn't be the last. These things happened in marriages. It didn't mean I didn't love Eli. It just meant I needed something he couldn't give me. I got dressed quickly and checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Eli and a text. "Lily's soccer practice got moved up. Where are you?" "Stuck in traffic," I texted back. "Be there in 20. I made it to the soccer field with 5 minutes to spare, but Eli was already there, sitting in the bleachers with his arms crossed. He looked at me when I sat down beside him, and I could swear he knew. But he just nodded toward the field where Lily was warming up. "She scored 2 goals at practice yesterday," he said. "You missed it." The accusation in his voice was subtle but unmistakable. I'd been missing a lot lately. Parent-teacher conferences, family dinners, bedtime stories, always with good excuses, always with apologies, but missing nonetheless. "I'm here now," I said defensively. "Yeah," Eli replied. "You're here now." We sat in silence for the rest of the practice, but I could feel him watching me out of the corner of his eye. When I pulled out my phone to check messages, his gaze sharpened. When Samir texted, "Amazing afternoon. When can I see you again?" I quickly deleted it without responding. That night, Eli announced he'd be staying at his mother's for a few days. "Why?" I asked, though part of me was relieved. The constant tension was exhausting. "I need some space to think," he said, packing a small bag. "Lily can stay here with you, but I'll pick her up for school in the mornings." "Space to think about what?" I pressed, following him around our bedroom. "Eli, you're being ridiculous. So I made a stupid joke at dinner a month ago. So I've been working late and networking more. These aren't crimes." He stopped packing and looked at me. "Is that really what you think this is about?" "What else would it be about?" I shot back. "You've been cold and distant ever since that dinner. You're punishing me for being social, for having friends, for trying to advance my career. It's controlling, Eli." Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. "I'm not trying to control you, Tansy. I'm trying to understand who you've become." "I haven't become anyone," I said. "I'm the same person you married, the same person who's been putting up with your moods and your mother's disapproval, and your complete lack of interest in our relationship. Eli zipped up his bag and headed for the door. "I'll call Lily tomorrow," he said. "We need to talk, but not tonight. I need some time." After he left, I called Cleo, who immediately took my side. "He's being emotionally abusive," she declared. "Giving you the silent treatment, moving out without explanation, making you feel crazy for living your life. This is classic manipulation, Tansy." Her words were exactly what I needed to hear. I wasn't the problem here, Eli was. He was the one who couldn't handle a confident, independent woman. He was the one who was abandoning his family over imagined slights. But even as I agreed with Cleo, even as I let her validate my version of events, a small voice in the back of my mind whispered that maybe, just maybe, I was lying to myself. I silenced that voice with another text to Samir. "My husband's out of town for a few days. Want to come over?" He was there within the hour, and for a while, I forgot all about my doubts, my guilt, and the growing certainty that my marriage was falling apart. In Samir's arms, I felt desired, appreciated, alive, everything I wasn't feeling at home. But the next morning, as I watched him sneak out through the back door while Lily was still sleeping, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. The woman looking back at me was someone I barely recognized, hair messed, makeup smeared, wearing yesterday's clothes and tomorrow's regrets. For just a moment, I wondered what Eli would think if he could see me now. Then I pushed the thought away and went to make Lily breakfast, practicing my smile so she wouldn't ask any uncomfortable questions. Word travels fast in a small town, especially when you're not as careful as you think you are. It started with whispers at work, knowing looks, conversations that stopped when I entered a room, Samir suddenly becoming scarce whenever I was around. Then my friend Jessica mentioned seeing me at the hotel bar, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the gossip reached the wrong ears. I tried to get ahead of it, posting carefully crafted messages on social media about the importance of privacy and not judging others' marriages from the outside. "Some people love to create drama where none exists," I wrote on Facebook, grateful for real friends who mind their own business. The post got plenty of likes from Cleo and my other supporters, but I noticed that several mutual friends, people who'd known Eli and me for years, didn't engage at all. That felt more telling than any comment could have been. Meanwhile, Eli had been staying at his mother's for over a week, coming by only to pick up Lily or grab more clothes. Our conversations were limited to logistics, but I could feel him watching me, cataloging my movements, my moods, my phone habits. It was unnerving. "When are you coming home?" I asked him one evening when he dropped Lily off after dinner at Marilyn's. "I don't know," he said simply. "Are you ready to have an honest conversation about what's been happening?" "What's been happening," I said, "is that you've been punishing me for weeks over a stupid comment. You moved out without even trying to work things out. You're confusing our daughter and making me look like the bad guy to your family." Eli studied my face for a long moment. "That's really what you think this is about? The joke at dinner?" "What else would it be about?" I demanded, though my heart was racing. He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was a text conversation between me and Samir, including messages I'd sent while Eli was putting Lily to bed, messages about meeting up, about how unappreciated I felt at home. My stomach dropped. "Where did you get that?" "Our shared iPad," Eli said calmly. "Your messages sync automatically, remember? We set it up that way when Lily started using it for school." I stared at the screen, my mind racing through excuses, explanations, anything that might minimize what he was seeing. We're just friends, Eli. I was venting to a coworker. You're taking everything out of context." "Am I?" He scrolled to another message, one where Samir had sent a photo of himself at the gym, and I'd responded with fire emojis and "looking good." "It's harmless flirting," I said desperately. "It doesn't mean anything. You're being paranoid and jealous over nothing." Eli put his phone away. "I've been documenting everything, Tansy. The late nights, the unexplained expenses, the lies about where you've been. I know about the hotel. The words hit me like a physical blow. I felt exposed, cornered, but also angry. How dare he spy on me? How dare he collect evidence like I was some kind of criminal? So what? I said, crossing my arms. So what if I've been talking to someone who actually appreciates me? So what if I've been trying to feel good about myself for once? You've been emotionally distant for months, Eli. You've made me feel invisible in my own marriage. I've been distant? Eli's voice remained calm, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. Tansy, I've been trying to connect with you for years. Every time I suggest a date night, you're too busy. Every time I try to talk about our future, you change the subject. Every time I reach out, you push me away. That's not true, I protested, but even as I said it, I could feel the weakness in my argument. When's the last time you asked me about my day? Eli continued. When's the last time you initiated any kind of intimacy between us that wasn't just physical? When's the last time you seemed genuinely happy to see me walk through the door? I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came, because the truth was, I couldn't remember. Somewhere along the way, Eli had become part of the furniture in my life. Reliable, functional, but not particularly interesting. I want you to leave, I said finally. If you're so unhappy, if you think I'm such a terrible wife, then just go. File for divorce. See if you can find someone who meets your impossible standards. Eli looked at me for a long moment, and I thought I saw something break behind his eyes. Okay, he said quietly. I will. After he left, I called Cleo, who immediately started planning my defense strategy. He's been spying on you, she said indignantly. That's a violation of privacy, and honestly, if he'd been a better husband, you never would have looked elsewhere in the first place. But her words felt hollow now. As I sat in my empty house, listening to Lily cry herself to sleep because she missed her daddy, I couldn't shake the image of Eli's face when I'd told him to leave. Not angry, not vindictive, just done. 3 days later, he showed up at my door with a man in a suit and a manila envelope. My hands were shaking as I signed for the papers, and for the first time since this whole mess started, I realized that I might have pushed too far. The lawyer's name was David Morrison, and he had the kind of calm, professional demeanor that made me immediately nervous. He sat at my kitchen table like he belonged there, spreading out documents while Eli stood by the window, looking out at the yard where Lily's swing set cast long shadows in the afternoon sun. Mrs. Varell, Morrison began, my client has asked me to present you with a petition for legal separation and to discuss the terms of a potential custody arrangement. I stared at the papers in front of me, the legal language blurring together. This is ridiculous, I said, looking at Eli. You're really going to destroy our family over some text messages? Morrison cleared his throat. Mrs. Varell, I think you should understand the full scope of what we're discussing. He opened a folder and began laying out printed pages. We have documentation of your extramarital affair, including hotel receipts, text message logs, and witness statements from your workplace. My blood ran cold. Witness statements? Your relationship with Mr. Tansy has become common knowledge at your office, Morrison continued. HR has opened an investigation into workplace conduct. We also have bank records showing unexplained expenses, ride-share receipts to locations where you claimed not to be, and a pattern of deception spanning several months. I looked at Eli, who was still staring out the window. You've been investigating me like I'm a criminal? I've been protecting myself and my daughter, Eli said without turning around. I needed to know the truth. The truth? I laughed, but it sounded hysterical even to me. The truth is that you drove me to this. The truth is that you've been an absent, boring husband for years, and when I finally found someone who made me feel alive, you couldn't handle it. Morrison made a note on his legal pad. Mrs. Varell, I'd advise you to be careful about what you say right now. These conversations can be used in court proceedings. Court proceedings. The words hit me like ice water. This was really happening. Eli wasn't bluffing, wasn't trying to scare me into compliance. He was actually prepared to end our marriage, to fight for custody of our daughter, to air our dirty laundry in front of a judge. "Eli, please," I said, my voice cracking. "We can work this out. I'll end things with Samir. I'll go to counseling. We can fix this." Finally, he turned around. His face was composed, but his eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion. "You told me to file for divorce, Tansy. You said to see if I could find someone who meets my impossible standards. Well, here we are." "I didn't mean it," I whispered. I was angry. People say things they don't mean when they're angry. "Like joking about your body count in front of our daughter and my mother?" Eli asked quietly. "Like telling your coworkers that I'm boring and inattentive? Like telling Samir that you married the wrong man?" That last one hit like a slap. I had said that in a moment of frustration, in a text I'd thought was private. But seeing it reflected back at me now, seeing the pain it had caused the man I'd promised to love and honor, I felt something crack inside my chest. Morrison was still talking about asset division and custody schedules, but I wasn't really listening anymore. I was thinking about the first time Eli and I had met, at a mutual friend's barbecue 10 years ago. He'd been quiet then too, standing off to the side while everyone else was playing volleyball. But when I'd approached him, he'd lit up, asked me about my job, my dreams, my thoughts on everything from politics to pizza toppings. He'd been interested in me, genuinely interested, in a way that felt rare and precious. When had I stopped appreciating that? When had his steady presence become boring instead of comforting? "I need some time to think," I said, interrupting Morrison mid-sentence. "Of course," he replied. "You have 30 days to respond to the petition. I'd recommend you consult with your own attorney." After they left, I sat alone in my kitchen, staring at the papers scattered across the table. The evidence of my affair was laid out like a crime scene. Hotel receipts, bank statements, printed text messages. It looked damning because it was damning. I called Cleo, but for the first time her automatic support felt insufficient. "He's trying to take everything," I told her. "The house, custody of Lily, even my reputation." "What a bastard," Cleo said predictably. "He's probably been planning this for months. You need to fight back, Tansy. Hire a lawyer, document his neglect, show the court that you're the better parent." But was I? I thought about the soccer practices I'd missed, the bedtime stories I'd skipped, the times I'd been physically present but mentally elsewhere, thinking about Samir's latest text or planning our next meeting. I thought about Lily asking why Daddy was sad, and how I'd lied to her face instead of taking responsibility for my part in our family's breakdown. My phone buzzed. A text from Samir. "Heard there might be some drama at work. Maybe we should cool things down for a while." And there it was. The man I'd risked everything for, the one who'd made me feel so alive and appreciated, was already backing away at the first sign of real consequences. He wanted the excitement of an affair, but not the messy reality of a divorce, custody battle, and public scandal. I typed and deleted a dozen responses before finally sending, "Probably for the best." His reply was immediate. "You understand, right? I'm not ready for anything serious." I stared at those words until they blurred. Not ready for anything serious. After months of telling me I deserved better, after convincing me that my marriage was a prison and he was my key to freedom, he wasn't ready for anything serious. I'd thrown away 10 years of marriage, hurt the man who'd loved me faithfully, confused and traumatized my daughter, all for someone who wasn't ready for anything serious. For the first time since this whole mess began, I cried. Not tears of anger or frustration, but deep, wrenching sobs of genuine regret. I'd made a mistake. Not just the affair, but everything that led up to it. The dismissiveness, the contempt, the gradual erosion of respect for the man who'd built his life around me and our daughter. But as I sat there crying over legal documents and evidence of my own betrayal, I realized something that chilled me to the bone. It might be too late to fix what I'd broken. The divorce proceedings took 4 months, 4 of the longest months of my life. I hired a lawyer, Janet Reeves, who came recommended by a friend of Cleo's. But from our first meeting, it was clear that I wasn't going to get the outcome I wanted. "Your husband has been very thorough," Janet told me after reviewing Eli's evidence. "The documentation is extensive and well organized. Text messages, financial records, witness statements, even photos of you and Mr. Tansy at various locations around town." Photos. I hadn't known about the photos. The thought of someone following me, documenting my movements, made my skin crawl. But Janet explained that in no-fault divorce states, evidence of adultery was still relevant for custody and financial settlements. "What are my chances of getting primary custody?" I asked. Janet was quiet for a moment, shuffling through the papers. "Mrs. Varell, I have to be honest with you. Your husband has documented not just the affair, but also instances where you missed important events in your daughter's life, times when you were unreachable during emergencies, and a pattern of prioritizing your personal relationships over your parental responsibilities." "That's not fair," I protested. "I work. I have a right to have friends, to have a social life." "Of course you do," Janet agreed. "But the court's primary concern is the best interest of the child. And right now, the evidence suggests that your daughter's father has been the more present, more reliable parent." The words stung because they were true. While I'd been caught up in the excitement of my affair, Eli had been the one handling Lily's school projects, her doctor's appointments, her emotional needs. He'd been holding our family together while I was actively tearing it apart. The custody evaluation was particularly brutal. A court-appointed psychologist interviewed all of us, me, Eli, Lily, even the grandparents. When it was my turn to meet with Dr. Patricia Chen, I tried to present myself as a loving, devoted mother who'd simply made some mistakes. "Tell me about your relationship with your daughter," Dr. Chen said, her pen poised over a legal pad. I talked about how much I loved Lily, how she was the most important thing in my life, how everything I did was for her benefit. But when Dr. Chen asked for specific examples, recent conversations, shared activities, moments of connection, I found myself scrambling. We watch movies together," I said. "And I help her with homework when I can. I mean, when I'm not working late or—" Dr. Chen made a note. "When was the last time you had a one-on-one conversation with Lily about something that was important to her?" I couldn't remember. I literally could not remember the last time I'd sat down with my daughter and really listened to her, really engaged with her world beyond the logistics of daily life. "I've been going through a difficult time," I said finally. "The separation has been stressful for everyone." "Of course," Dr. Chen replied. "And how do you think your choices over the past several months have affected Lily?" The question hung in the air like a sentence waiting to be passed. How had my choices affected my daughter? I'd known the answer for months, but saying it aloud felt unbearable. Lily's nightmares, her withdrawn silences, the way she'd flinched when I said, "It's just grown-up stuff, sweetheart." I'd called it resilience. The court called it harm. By the time the hearing began, it was already over in spirit. Morrison built Eli's case like an architect of ruin. Each exhibit, each witness, another beam removed from the structure of my life. My lies had been small, I'd told myself. Necessary. But laid out under fluorescent lights, they were mountains. Eli didn't gloat. He just spoke gently about stability, routine, safety, everything I'd dismantled in pursuit of excitement. When the judge asked him if he thought I was a bad mother, he said no. "She's capable," he said, "but she forgot what being a mother means." That mercy hurt worse than anger. When the judgment came, it was clean, clinical, primary custody to Eli, weekends for me, counseling required, minimal support, a family reduced to scheduling blocks. Outside, Cleo railed against the system, against bias, against fate. But I wasn't listening. I was thinking of Lily asking, "Will you still tuck me in?" and realizing the answer would now depend on a court order. In my rented apartment that night, surrounded by boxes and silence, I read the decree again. 10 years of marriage, condensed to a few pages. A decade of love, undone by my own carelessness. I'd thought I was rebelling, finding myself, proving I still mattered. Instead, I'd proven how easily I could destroy the things that did. The affair had begun with a joke about my past, and ended by erasing my future. And as the quiet pressed in, I understood the final punchline. The person I'd cheated most wasn't Eli. It was Lily. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.